What's good, people? Today we're gonna dive into one of the most important videos I make, and it took me over 160 hours of testing NBA 2K, and then another 100 hours of just conversating with top players, with content creators, and just casual people about what they're feeling and what they're seeing. And I've tested this myself in different modes. I've basically overloaded on information. So we're gonna test out the values of each attribute, and this will have somewhat of batch conversation as well, but we're going to get into that whole topic. Make sure you lock in. All right, that being said, make sure you subscribe, comment, and like if you down with me and want to show support. Doesn't take much and it's appreciated. All right, I'll be easy. Let's do it. So first things first, I'm going to be real. This depends on you. There's going to be a whole bunch of different things. I'm not going to make a timestamp. Just watch and enjoy. Take notes on your build, because maybe you have a big, maybe you have a guard. Whatever play style you have, we're getting into it. Here goes. So first things first, yes, I have 160 hours. Don't judge me. I love the game. Okay. And what we're going to do is go from right to left, and we'll scroll all the way through, and I'll explain. If you miss out on information by skipping ahead, then I promise you, you're trash, because you're missing out on key information that's going to help overall. So the first thing I want to say is that it depends on your playstyle, and there's no one answer for everything. So floaters, if you're a guard or a big, you can use them. Hook shots, mostly for bigs and post players, and then paint patroller, mostly for people who are going to be down there mashing. This is no one answer fit all, but don't ever listen to the lies. Okay. So what I want to talk about is this is going to go up automatically as you put up layups and different things. It'll start upgrading. But what I definitely love most is around a 78 for floaters. I've been killing it with floaters, and I'm a guard. I don't have a high post shot, so 78 is good enough. This will go higher, of course, as you play, but it's super important to note. And another big threshold for the guards for mashing for like a center when they get a rebound is 84. You get silver on this. And I always talk about the max plus twos because it does help with these badges. If you get it on silver, that means you can have it on Hall of Fame. So 84 is super reasonable for any center or masher that's going to be in the paint. Okay. Above this is when it starts getting a little toxic. Like if you're going to be a guard who just does floaters instead of dunking or anything like that, you can go with an 86. I like it personally. I know not everybody's going to agree, but personally, I definitely do. And then for the hardcore post style players in the paint, 92 is reasonable. Once you start reaching the 96 and above, it's not necessarily worth it. You can use the cap breakers, in my opinion, but don't listen to the storyline of people trying to tell you go to 96. Unless this is literally your whole build, then you're going to put it at 94 and use 2 cap breakers to build it up. Okay, that's just an example of what you should or shouldn't do. Now I want to talk about layups, and again, this is the same kind of talk. We're not going to talk about floaters because we just did. But the layup packages, I promise you, physical finisher is a must-have for almost any build. Okay, I'm just gonna be real. So if you have an 80, if you can get an 80, it's very good for the big men, for the guards. When somebody bumps you, which a good defender will, they can throw you out of a dunk. They can stop your regular animation and turn it into a contact layup. So an 80 is the minimum, in my opinion, for most people. Now, sometimes you just want to have driving dunk high and have this low. I promise you, if you put it any lower, when you go for a layup on a dunk and somebody bumps you, you might miss the layup because they transfer it and convert it into a layup and you're cooked. So 80 is a must, all right? Just my opinion. And then we want to go with the mix master, aka layups. This is for when you're doing euros and acrobatic layups, doing different things that are fancy. I love this badge. I don't think it needs to be higher than an 85 right now, unless you have no dunks at all and you're just focusing on this. And then sure, you can turn it up, but it's not going to be a good value at 93 unless your whole build is dedicated to being like an efficient slasher. Then we can talk about this being a big factor, because if that's the case, you want to have some driving dunk and driving layup, which we'll get into another time. But personally, I love a 90 with physical finisher. You're going to get tons of stuff if you're just a straight up layup type of player. If you're a big man, your job isn't to do layups mostly, so personally drop it down. Now we're gonna get to driving dunk. I'm an expert at this, okay? This is my number one thing in the game as far as just getting dunks, all right? 87 silver is more than enough to get a lot of contacts. You watch my highlights, if you see my 6'8 and my 6'6, both of them are insane. My 6'8 has posterizer on silver and it dominates, okay? Actually dominates. And it's not because I'm the best, it's just silver is good enough for you to get a lot of good dunks on people. You're gonna trigger more dunks than not. But I'm gonna be honest with you, when you get it to 93, you are insane. I personally would like a 87 and then you can max plus to it. But I promise you, if you have it on gold, you're going to feel like, wow, my green window for my dunks are crazy. I'm dunking more on people, like on people, than ever. This is amazing. So if you are like me, you put it at 89, you get contact dunks and all that to start off with, and then you can boost it up to 93 so that you can really dominate as you go forward. All right. That's it. And then aerial wizard, you don't really have to worry about aerial wizard. To be honest with you, if you have a lane and somebody throws an alley-oop, you're fine. Only time aerial wizard needs to be higher is if, and only if, remember, that's like your main thing. You want to contact dunk aerial wizard on people, which will make you have a 93 or more just so you can get it pretty high up anyways. I don't think it's necessary to think about this at all. All right. And this is one of the key things this year as far as standing dunks. Is not that valuable. It's not necessary for most builds, but it's very useful and powerful for a lot of builds. So 45 for everybody. If you're under 6'5", you can't get it at all. So don't worry about the animations. But at 45, you're going to get standing dunks very good. Now, the next threshold is pretty high, but these aren't that valuable. At 72, I have my 6'6 right now, and it does very well at 72. You can get a lot of standing dunks, pretty high. But I'm going to be honest with you, I use a max plus one on it to have it on silver, and I am only 6'6", and I'm doing drop step standing dunks on guards. Anytime I have a guard that's my height or smaller, and they don't have high defense, I just do a drop step dunk on them. Okay. And I promise you, you're going to be like, wow, that's toxic. Yeah, it is, but it's perfect. Okay. Now, if you're a center, there's no way you don't have a 90. I'm sorry. If you have anything lower than a 90 and you're a center, I don't know what you're doing with that build. Just my opinion. Gold rise up is essential. And this is the minimum. I wouldn't go to 95. Unless you're a pure inside big or you really want to dominate, go crazy. It's not worth the cap breakers, and it's not worth that you can trigger enough standing dunks with 90. I promise. Right? And last but not least, this is a whole like video on its own for post players. But what I could talk about here is the main ones that I talked about earlier. We talked about hook shot. If you're a post player, you want to have that high. But now we're going to get into a bunch of other badges. I want to start off with the one and the only unpluckable. If you're a post player, you want to get this on a 96. I don't care what anybody tells you. Automatically have it at a 96. Okay? And you're good to go. This is the best of the best. Now, 96 is a little high, so I would drop it down. You know, maybe use 3 cap breakers in there if you can. And get it lower. But personally, I like to cheat the game. I'm sorry to break the news. Cheat the game a little bit and put it on a 86 and then use the max plus 2s. And this is very key. This is why I'm not going to just lie to you about the attributes. We're not doing that. We're doing cap breakers or max plus ones and twos. And this is the way to go. Use max plus twos. Now you're a post player. You don't have to use too much if you're not a heavy duty post player, but you want to have them pluckable when you do post. It's necessary this year because I steal the ball a lot. When I see somebody plucking, posting up, I just run up to them and pluck it. It's an automatic pluck, in my opinion, with the build that I have. So that's key. Secondly, if you're a full-time post player, 93, 94, and then use your cap breakers to get it up there. Now, I want to talk about the post powerhouse, something I absolutely love, in my opinion. And right now, I got a friend who's a full-time, like, hardcore post guy, and he drop steps all the time. He's an inside. This, to me, on gold is super useful. All right, anything on gold is useful because you can put it on legend with the max plus twos. Personally, they have it on 85 and they dominate because they put the max plus twos on it. But in reality, with this, you're good enough. As long as you have very high strength. Of course, don't worry about the strength on this breakdown. This is just information for you guys to digest and to go through. So if you're making it big and you want to really go crazy, 85 is the minimum, in my opinion, for that match. Now, I want to talk about the post up poet, right? This is like an ankle breaker for post play, and it's pretty fun, and I love it. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Just going to be honest with you. Having it low is fine if you're not a hardcore guy. This is unnecessarily high, right? 77 if you just want to do once in a while ankle breaker. It's like a dribbler trying to have a little bit of ankle breaking and have a chance to, you know, get a buff. But if you're a hardcore guy, and like I said, this is specializing on each of them, and I have a lot of good friends who basically do mid-range post and kind of very cool finesse play, 87 is very valuable. Again, you're going to get a theme here with a lot of gold for them, because honestly, it's not worth it past gold. You go to legend on 95, not worth it. So 87. All right. And that's that. And now we're going to move on to shooting. Here's a pro tip. All right. Shooting is very simple this year. You're going to score a lot. You're going to do your thing, man. And we're going to just talk about it very briefly here. Let me lower some of these attributes. Doesn't matter. But here's the thing. You can have a high midi and then have a decent three. Okay. So for example, if I want a 3-pointer, limitless range is very key. So like an 89 silver limitless range, and then I can put up my mid-range to be able to have set shot specialists on Hall of Fame. All right, we're going to start off with set shot specialist. Set shot specialist on Hall of Fame feels like I'm cheating with the button shooting, and it feels like I hacked the game, like I'm in the Matrix when I rhythm shoot. So set shot specialist, whichever way you get it, is key. You can do it for mid-ranges or you could do it for threes, okay? But threes cost way too much, 95. It's not worth it, in my opinion. I would rather go with a 93 3-pointer and then just drop this down if necessary. Fine, and I'll use my max plus 2 to get the set shot specialist. But I can do the opposite and basically drop this down to an 89 to get limitless, and then put this up to an 3. And right there, I'm cooking for the year. This is the best, in my opinion, for you right here. This setup, if you want to be a lethal shooter, this is the best setup for your value as far as like a lethal shooter. Okay. And then again, in the end of the day, I said this 1,000 times, so take it with a grain of salt, but in the end of the day, gold for all of these badges. All right. So for example, if I just had a 93 3-pointer, I have gold on everything, and I can max plus 2 and max plus 1 these depending on what I really need. Set shot specialist or limitless. This is key. This is the way I would go if I'm just wanting to reach the threshold, and then I can use my max plus 2s and maybe a cap breaker or 2 to buff it up and go nuts with a 96 and have everything on Hall of Fame. Okay? With that being said, those are all these badges. They feel really good. For me, Shifty Shooter is an insane setup this year. All right, Shifty Shooter is very good. Like you can do fades with the rhythm shooting and be the best in the game if you did so. Free throws, I'm not gonna really talk about this value. Personally, I have it at a 70 and I've been fine, but it's not that great. Personally, an 80 is better. Okay. I've been having low free throws, even though I shouldn't, at 70, and I make over 70%. But it's harder. So yeah. And I want to take a moment to just talk about mini marksman. Mini marksman, I only know one person that has a tiny build, personally, a friend. And then I have some of the top players who've talked to me about mini marksman. They felt like they didn't feel the impact that this had before. They really weren't feeling it as strong. As you can see, I'm already at 94 and I have it on gold. It doesn't feel worth it. So personally, if you're like a really small guard, it's like, how low can you go? Well, guess what? You can go very low. Still have mini marksman. Look at it right here. 82, I'm sorry. So if you have a low build, if you're a shooter and you're putting an 82, you should have an 83 at minimum. This is what I have on my lockdown, and it shoots very well with rhythm shooting, 83. And that's that. These are the thresholds. Personally, for shooting, this is the key one. Or if you have the minimal shooting, this is key. That's what I have on my lockdown that you've been watching all those highlights of. All right, now we're gonna get into passing. Here's the thing. 65 gives you break starter. This is the bare minimum for all builds, in my opinion. You go any lower than this, you're cooked, in my opinion. But with a 70, you got visionary, which is the best. If you put one up, you get dimer. But guess what? If I put 87, I have silver, visionary, break starter, and dimer. This is key. This is critical. Okay. That's my opinion. Every build, if you can get it this high, you're good to go. At minimum 70 to 65, if you're really like if you're basically just a lockdown or off ball player, you don't need this high. Now the question is, if you're actually trying to dominate and be a good passer and you're playing competitive, like hardcore competitive, this is when 84, 85 starts becoming a threshold. Personally, for my centers, 87 break starter on gold feels like a lethal elite setup. The higher, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, the players I played with that were in the 90s, definitely you can feel it. The speed of the pass and less fumbles. Okay, 2K Labs did a breakdown on 70 being the best to not get fumbles, and anything higher is always helpful. Right? But you don't have to do any of this stuff. Again, everything that I'm saying, take it with a grain of salt on your preference and all that stuff. This isn't a must-have, but personally, 76 is the answer. Now we're gonna get into dribbling. Here's the deal. Dribbling is tricky this year. If you're like a big man, you can have a low 40, maybe low 40, and the best for a big, if you're gonna waste all that attributes, which I don't recommend, 65. You get a lot of good animations and you're good to go. I don't think center should have this, but I'm just recommending it as far as like, if you want to be a dribble head center, which I love to make those builds, so it is fun, but it isn't competitive. It's just fun. And so 65 is the bare minimum because you get great animations. That's it. It's all about animation threshold. And then I want to kind of talk about what I'm seeing out there that is the best overall. Again, 86. You're going to get Zach LaVine. You're going to get Tracy McGrady. You're going to get Kobe White. I have an animations video on my channel on how amazing these things have been for me, and you're good to go. Top of that, with the speed with ball at 75 for the minimum dribblers. Okay, so if you're 6'8", 75 is the answer. Okay, so make sure you have that so you can unlock specific badges and specific things, and also have lightning launcher on silver. Okay, but I will take a quick note and tell you that if you have it on 80, you're going to unlock specific takeovers. You're going to unlock specific things that are really good, that are necessary in here. Okay, we'll get into that in a minute. Here it is right here. Here it goes. So check this out. Boom. Blur. Now I have blur because I have an 80. Blur is one of the best finishing takeover abilities, and it is necessary. This is the bare minimum for all type of dribble heads. Okay, and this is the max. This is like a meta right now. Unfortunately, there is a meta. But, and I want to kind of get into a couple thresholds. This is a very complicated topic. There's going to be seasonal animations that are at 95, 94. We've seen it last year. We've seen it almost every year. There's something really cool. It doesn't mean you need it. It's just fun to have. Personally, I make a secure build where I have 94. If I'm going to make a small guard, like, 6'4" and under, 94 dribbles, automatic. Because just in case for cool animations that I want to try later, I can boost this up to 99. I don't recommend this. As I said, I don't recommend it. What I can say is unpluckable is annoying when it's on silver. Because if you get into the paint and there's two people in there, you could just bump into somebody this year and it sucks. So you have to be very careful with your dribbles when you're under 92. 92 should be your bare minimum if you're a dribble head, in my opinion. That's without the thresholds of future animations that are going to come out. Okay. And then with speed with ball, here's what I got to say. Automatically, if you're a hardcore dribbler, gold is the best answer. You can reach it. So 86 speed with ball, super necessary. This is clutch. Now, of course, if I want you to go nuts, give me a 91 and then just max +1 this. This is what I would do right here. If I'm trying to be elite, I'm going with this, right? And maybe higher passing, of course. But this will be kind of like the playmaking dream right here. 87. Okay. Of course, you can go higher if you really want to go nuts with that. But this would be like the thresholds for my small guard. This is what I'm doing. I haven't made my small guard officially yet. This would be the goal. Okay. That's that. And now we're going to move on to make a guard. I'm making my 6, right? So we're going to do some of this. We're going to just stick to a couple of topics on here. So here's the deal. I made my guard. I love them. I think it's one of the best builds in the game. We're going to start off with perimeter. Here's what I learned about perimeter after all this time. It is necessary for contest, and it is very nice for other things as well, like on-ball menace and pick dodger. Okay? I personally feel you have to have a very good, and let me put up some strength very quickly. You have to have perimeter at a high rate. Okay? 82 is the bare minimum to have challenger on silver. If you're a guard build at any position, you should have it high. Okay? I'm going to say one thing about this big man. Once you're a certain height, you can only get you can't get challenger, so you're screwed. So this isn't for you on that topic. You're going to have it as max as possible when you're a center, because you might have to switch and contest. So it's good to have if you can. But this guards at 82 is the bare minimum. That would show you like, oh, he's a good enough guard. Okay. And I'm going to put on some weight to get some strength in here so that you guys can kind of see the real potential of some of these badges, things that will like make it even stronger. We'll get into in a minute. But for example, 82 for challenger, right? Being good. Guess what? My challenger, depending on my perimeter defense, can go higher. Guess what? I want it for immovable enforcer to go higher. Guess what? That's great. Lacking on agility. Let's boost this up real quick so I can show y'all something. Now all of a sudden, I got pick dodger on silver with an 84. Guess what? I put it on 85. On ball menace on silver. You have to have this. To me, this is the standard of elite at the moment for somebody who's like, hey, I'm not a hardcore lockdown, but I want to be there. Right here, 85. You go higher, you're not going to get much until you reach 90. This is when the top players like, oh, I want to get through screens and I want on-ball menace on gold. I'm a max plus 2D. Look at this. Challenger on 92. Okay. This is the answer. But again, if you're not elite, like I'm my lockdown, you don't need this too high. I'm going to have a 99, which is outrageous. But for me personally, 92 is very strong if you can afford it. If you can afford it. Not everybody can. Now here's the deal. Steals it's currently September 11th, and steals is a tough conversation. Personally, everybody should have it at 67 if you can afford it. Just well, 60 if you're like a center who doesn't have a lot of steals. Just put it on 60 to have interceptor on bronze so you can use max plus 1s and 2s in the future, because there's going to be an update that's going to change it. 67 for guards automatically because you have bronze. The safe bet, this is the pro tip for this whole build, this whole video. Having things on bronze is good because you can max plus 2 them later. So do not, if you can reach this threshold, if you put a 65, I hate you. Put it on 67. It's going to give you bronze badges. You can max plus 2 it later. Personally, on my build that with a 73, I've been getting some decent interceptions and some decent flux. My bump steals is mostly about bodying up. You don't even have to have a high steal to get those. And then the actual interceptions, you just got to be at the right position. You're not going to get the best animations, but you can get a bunch of them. Silver. Personally, when I felt the difference big time when I went to gold on both of these, right? And all you have to do is hit 91. And I would think some of these builds can have one of these attributes. Personally, I would put it on perimeter ahead of steals. But yeah, just a choice. They're going to buff this up later, so I don't want to kind of get too deep into it. Before I talk about blocks, I want to talk about interior. Interior can help you get cool animations to contest people in the paint, okay? So I personally think it's nice. So if I put this up for a second, let's just put this up as high as possible for the moment. If I put this up, if I get it on Paint Patroller, I am going to get animations that I can't get just by having it on 60 that I won't be getting if I didn't buff it up, right? I'm going to put it on 70. I'm going to change the build, make it a lockdown. 6-8 lock higher. Blocking the capabilities. And so now the main thing is a 74. Sorry. Yeah, 74 for blocks. And then you want to basically have an 84 for blocks, and then interior, sorry, 74. This is what I like. But personally, I said it to y'all, I showed y'all this on my other video. This is the key. Locks are super overpowered right now, right? Having it at a very high clip, super necessary. You just need vertical and a 78. And that's for the 6-8 build that I have on the channel. You guys can watch me block everybody. This is all you need, personally. If you go any higher, you're just a monster, right? Now, my thing is for centers, you got to have 93 and an 88. This is my personal opinion. With what I've seen out there, having a very high ability for interior and blocks makes you unstoppable down there. You're a monster. Okay. That's that. I have your vertical high. Now you got gold. You can turn them into legend. Okay. Then we're going to move on to some important factors here. We're not worried about these heights, by the way. This is just me kind of cheesing this up a little. We're going to talk about rebounds. I'm going to pretty much reset this build. Rebounds, right? All you need for rebounds is just rebounds. Personally, offensive is better because as long as you can unlock the actual threshold, it doesn't matter about anything else. So reaching the threshold is key, right? Of course you want legend, but it ain't worth it. 94 to me, if you're going to be the most elite center, gotta have that. But if we're going to start off hot, we want to talk about the 60 threshold for any guard. If you can reach it, it's very cheap. Put that on. Then from there, the second threshold, which is super cool, which is very low, 70. I have a 70 on my lockdown is 6'6", and I out rebound point guards easily because they only have 60 or lower. So I got positioning. They can't push me around too much. The only guys that can give me trouble is actual centers and power forwards. And guess what? If you want to get crazy, if you're a guard type of build, 85 is super cool. Or, you know, let's say a wing or maybe even a power forward. 85 is nice. If you're a center, like I said, 94 is, in my opinion, a must, so you can get it to 99. I like putting my secondary part, which maybe let's say I put it on defense, at 80 or higher. And personally, 85 is nice because you can really still out rebound people, even on both, whichever way you go. You can go backwards and make this one a 94 and then lower this one to 85. Either way, you'll be good. All right, and back into the PGs. We're going to be talking about one of the most important things, in my opinion, that I really love is actually, let me go change this. Make this a little better. So agility. Agility, here's the thing before we talk about speed. Agility plays such a big role. I didn't know how good this was, okay? I have the capabilities of staying in front of people at all times. And then by the end of the day, every badge will be legend with my agility at a 92. It's the highest rate that you need. You can't have pick dodger on legend unless you have this up as well. So my lockdown automatically has it at 92. Now, start with that because this is going to help you understand the game a lot better. Like, do I need that? I promise you this year's picks are crazy, but I just been sliding through them with this new setup. And so I recommend you learning how to figure this out. Now, I want to start off with the threshold that I think has been very reasonable. If you're like a bigger guard and you can't really afford too much, 76 feels okay, but you're going to be sluggish compared to those guards. So here's where this conversation gets deep. Speed, you can rely on speed because agility also not only deals with your responsiveness, but it deals with your holding L2 movement. So if I have this low, I can't hold L2 a lot. But if I have my speed high, what that means is I'm able to keep up with you because I have the speed. I just can't hold L2 a lot and stay in front of you. So I would depend on my turbo button if I had speed. But vice versa, if I had lower speed and I have vertical high, this is where those who skipped ahead missed out. All of a sudden, I can hold L2 and just guard up and body you up more and stop you from getting away from me because I can move laterally faster and respond faster. So this is where there's a catch-22 of like, what are you putting on? Right now, I have an 88 speed and 92 agility, and I'm just fine. I'm going to put up my speed as well, which will make my build be insane once I get it to 90. You'll see on the channel if you check that build out, it's a masterpiece. But defensive lockdowns, 92 is a must. You can only get it at 6'6". If you go any higher, you basically can only get 91, which kills your pick dodger. And you basically just wasted a build because you don't have legend, unless you're going to use a max plus 2. But for the regular folks, I can tell you for a fact, having agility will give you a better buff. And I personally like on-ball menace as the best. Even though this is an attribute setup, I just want to talk about menace. And if you can get it at 84, you're good to go. Having your speed low with agility is not going to be good because you're depending on agility only. You have to run and chase people sometimes. So speed plays a role with this. Personally, I think a 88 is good enough to keep up with anybody. You're fast out there. But if you're a big guard like me, I think I have an 86 speed on my build. I'm doing okay with the 6'8". So that is that. And then I want to talk about vertical very shortly. Just reach the animations thresholds for your dunks and for whatever, like, you know, let's say you want to block a little better, or high riser or posterizer, whatever the badge requirements are, that's all you want to reach. Unless you have extra to get better blocks, better rebounds, this will help you with contesting shots, with getting rebounds, stuff like that. It could help a bit, but it's not necessary. My favorite threshold is an 80 if I want to do contact dunks. And for the centers, you're capable of getting 83 to be able to have high blocks and high other things, which I don't have on this build. But as you can see, it's going to be for high flyer denier, rise up, need these. So 83 is the maximum. Unless you're going for some crazy, I want to have legend pogo at 88. You shouldn't waste this unless you finish the whole build. And yeah, that is an hour and 60 hours worth of deep dive breakdown on best values for your buck in the game from my experience, and then talking with some people who test this stuff and go through the grapevine of just like they played over 100+ hours like me, and they're really loving 2K a lot. They have a lot to, you know, offer when it comes to information. So yeah, that's the rundown. Now, what I want to say also, just so we can go, this was a long video. This information can change. All right, so September 11th, 2025. If let's say November comes around and they do this big patch where they ruin one attribute, we'll do an update maybe for that. But we're not going to go too crazy with that. I'm only basing this off of the 100+ hours that I have and the people who've expressed what they like or don't like, well, and their feeling. Share your feelings and thoughts in the comments. Thank you for sticking around for all of this. As you can see, this build on this channel can get blocks, steals, it can do everything. Gonna break ankles. I think I know what I'm talking about a little bit. You know what I mean? It's not about being a pro player or anything like that. It's just sharing this and hoping you guys can use it for your personal experience. Okay, hopefully it was helpful, but insightful. If you're making a second or first build and future builds, this could be a guideline. Okay, man, I appreciate y'all time, your energy. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, and catch me on that next one. I'll stay safe, take care, stay blessed. Hey.